Hey, MMT followers, Christina Fuges with MoldMaking Technology back for another quick MMT chat. And my guest today is Joe Karpinski, who is the Senior Tooling Engineer and Lead Estimator at Adler Industrial Solutions. Hi, Joe.
How you doing?
Good. We're going to talk a
Good.
little bit about workforce, workflow, and some technology. So let's just get right into this. So
Yeah, no problem.
you have you have over 30 years of experience, right, across engineering and production.
Yeah.
What approaches have you found when it comes to people and mentoring that are the most effective for that next generation?
Yeah, so when I came into the industry, 30 plus years ago, obviously, Northwest Pennsylvania, where I'm born and raised at, tool and die capital of the world, which we're still holding strong, as they say. So I was very fortunate to work for companies, family owned, and later on some larger companies where it always seemed like I had the senior mentor or somebody senior to me, shadow me type thing, even from when I was an entry level drafter, mold designer, that type of thing. And I would say, the best part about it is, everybody can say, good mentorship, bad mentorship, but at the end of the day, it's always good to have somebody you can ask questions to bounce off. And, a lot of stuff you learn on the fly, because obviously I went to school, took drafting design in school and all that stuff. But when you get on the job, they always tell you, forget what you learned in school. This is how we, this is how we
This is the
do
real
things
world.
here. Yeah, this is the real world. So I was very quickly integrated into that mentality. I had one of my mentors tell me, if you're not used to a high-paced, fast-paced, high-intensity type of work, this might not be the industry for you. Well, I've made it this long, so that
Then
speaks volumes of the people I've been around. I'm not gonna lie. I always
that's
say
true.
that most people, I wouldn't be where I was today, where I am today, or where I was, if it wasn't
Mhm.
for the people around me. I mean, obviously, I consider myself, lead by example, hardworking individual. But at the end of the day, if it wasn't for the people around me, I wouldn't be where I'm at today.
Yeah, I mean it's like paying it forward too, right?
Yeah,
Everyone has to share what they know, otherwise the industry goes nowhere. So that's a good segue into
yeah.
when you're talking about mentoring that next generation. What do you think's like, which technical skill do you find's the hardest to
Hmm.
transfer?
Yeah, I think a lot of times when somebody's young and eager, even like myself, you kind of have tunnel vision. You really focus on what you're really looking at and working on, even as when I was doing mold design all the time. And then when I got on the floor and started learning how to run machines, it's like you got to kind of pull off those blinders and see everything around you because, you can always say, you get true, you always hear the conversation of what's a true tool maker or what's a machinist and this and that. Well, when I came up, tool makers, even though still today they got to cover a lot of bases. They don't just get a set of prints and just plug and through it. They see the big picture just like as a mold designer would, or you know, a project manager seeing the whole project in one big fell swoop. So it's the whole breaking it down individual steps and processes. I would think the biggest thing is, you don't want to overwhelm somebody when they first come in, but at the end of the day, you have to tell them, hey, I know you're working on this. Like, I'll just give an example of an apprenticeship type level person or a machinist. It's like, yeah, you're working on this part, but if you explain to them what this part goes into, the functionality and all that other
Yeah,
stuff, because it seemed like as obviously as CAD and everything else as simulations and CAD systems and CAM systems. I mean, there's a lot of high tech stuff that goes on out there, but at the end of the day, somebody coming into the industry, they really have to see the bigger picture. You can obviously dial in on what they're working on as an individual, whether it's machine design or anything else, but you got to give them the bigger picture to help them understand. Like, I know you're only working on these components or this part, but it's the bigger picture. Show them the whole design, the whole mold, and when it comes down to when you're putting a mold together or having to go through the shop, drag that person away from the machine and show them like, hey, this is why this was important and this is why this
exactly.
isn't. And if you maybe program their design is differently, could have made it easier or makes it harder for it to machine, machining, the design for manufacturability and all that kind of
Yep,
stuff. So it's
you
it's
said
a
it.
it's a big scope, but once
It's
again,
connecting the dots, right?
there
So
you
if
go.
you're only specializing in
Yeah,
one, if you're in your silo, you don't
yeah,
understand how your job and what you do impacts
yeah,
everything else, which in the end impacts the customer,
yeah,
impacts that end
absolutely.
product that you're making. So I do think that's unique to mold making too. And I'm always
Yeah.
asked, how is mold making different from like a production job shop? It's like, oh, geez. And what you said is kind of,
Yeah.
that's kind of it in a nutshell. Like that
Mhm.
mold maker. has to think of so many different things. They're not just focused on one part and doing the same thing, over and over again. That's it. It's the
Hmm.
overview. So,
Yeah.
and I would think that would be exciting for people coming in. You're not just
Yes.
doing that same tedious,
Especially
repetitive work all the
nowadays
time.
with all the robotics and automation and
Yeah,
on and on and on. Not there wasn't innovative things back even when I came in, but to see the evolution of it, and that's why anytime I go to a trade show or go to a career fair and everything else, you try to give them that bigger picture, like, you just don't have to come in and run a machine or just design
right.
things. There are just so many other things going on out there for sure.
Exactly. Exactly. We have to do a better job of marketing
Yes.
that just as an industry.
We have
All
free
right,
time.
let's go more into like your specific role. So we
Yeah.
were into this like the whole production planning,
Hmm.
GD&T, automation. Like how do you do all that to ensure that the complex projects are on time,
Yep.
they're on schedule and they're meeting all those quality goals. What's key to that?
Yeah, I think what key is, and I think it's the upfront work you do. I mean, even me as an estimator, I do a lot of the estimating here for the Adler Industrial Solutions. And to be honest with you, I think the more legwork you do up front really helps solve some of the roadblocks and issues that happen on the road. Not saying that you don't skip over some things, but learned many, many, many years ago that the more upfront work you do on a project, whether it's either in design or out on the floor, even if it's a brand new project, and this could be for project managers, tooling engineers across the board. It's really sitting down and playing it out properly. It's when, I can do all my fancy things and put all my line items and all my notes and everything in
Hmm.
a quote. But at the end of the day, when you go to kick off that job and you get that PO, that's where you really want to get everybody together. And I know we just talked about the whole meeting thing, but having a kickoff meeting or pre-kickoff
Yeah.
meeting and just,
Right.
I mean, and then here's the best part, bring the people in that are actually going to do the work too. I mean, there's only so many assumptions I can make, but you still have to have the flexibility of things change and things move around. So that's, to
Yeah.
me, the upfront work and the legwork you do upfront. One, it shows the customer you really care about their partnership and the money that they're paying you, obviously. And I think that speaks volumes because, it's great to get a lot of things done and, be banging through things out in the shop. But once again, to your point, if you're not efficient, you're not making money, then you're not going to last very long. So,
Mm-mm, you're not. It's that I agree too. It's that upfront communication.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
is there a particular area, whether it's in the planning,
Yeah.
that most shops underinvest in?
That's a great question.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Underinvesting, I would say sometimes it's almost like a dual-edged sword. Like, there's companies out there that are that have, the higher volume and the higher, they're a larger company and maybe they just have more monetary resource to go, hey, we just got this project. We can invest money in our company, which will help this customer, not only help this customer, but more customers down the road. But then in other cases, you got to get, I hate to say, creative and inventive. Like if
Hmm.
you're a smaller shop or a medium-sized company, like, we really can't go out and spend a couple $1 million on some automation, but maybe if we buy some more work holding and fixturing and do more preemptive work on, how we're going to program these parts or machines, and maybe we can do a better job once all the parts come together, uh, do better checks and balances throughout the process with our quality system to make sure that, parts that we assume they're good to go and they kind of didn't get the full attention that they need, because it always happens,
Hmm.
some of the simplest things bite you in the butt when you
Yeah,
get to
that's
the
the
final
truth.
thing. So like I said, it's always a bigger picture, but at the end of the day, I think it's whatever situation you're in or whatever company you work for, you want to utilize what you have on the floor. But obviously, if you have the ability to add more resources, meaning automation and technology, that's great. But at the end of the day, with everybody running 100 miles an hour, like we all know, sometimes you just got to get your best heads together and go, you know what? Once again, learning from other projects too, doing the postmortems, learning from
Yep.
other projects, and then implementing things that you should have done on the last project. Now you can do it on this project, and that just increases your efficiency, your capabilities, and your profit margin.
Interesting.
So,
All right, you mentioned technology, so I
yeah,
want to talk a little bit about get your insights on
yeah,
additive manufacturing, 3D
yeah,
printing, and all these digital tools, right?
yeah,
That are reshaping the way we build molds, right? So
yeah,
talk to me a little bit about what stands out to you and how
yeah. I
is that
think,
happening within
well,
Adler?
yeah, well, because we're part of we have multiple divisions within Adler. Our sister company, R&D Leverage, has a full 3D printing resource, and they can do everything from 3D printing, casting. There's multiple ways they can approach a project, especially for a customer who wants to kick off a new project. but an intern also they can print out stuff for the for the mold, injection molding side, end of arm tooling and all kind of stuff, fixtures for quality and all that kind of stuff. So once again, utilizing your internal resources, which we have the ability to. Some companies don't. They have to. That's why there's all the companies out there now that can do all that stuff too
Yeah.
as an added value, of course. Obviously everybody wants to do as much as they can in-house, which we do. And sometimes, to cut the lead time down and the cost down, we can say, hey, we can, if we can't do it internally, we have a great resource that, we partner with that can do that. But at the end of the day, I think the customer really appreciates, once again, that upfront work that you're willing to help them out, knowing that the smaller project's going to turn into a larger project and we'll get awarded that business.
Yeah. I mean, I
Yeah.
guess whether you do it in-house or you have that
Right.
key supplier to contract it to,
Right.
you want to offer that.
Absolutely.
You don't want to say
Yeah.
no because you don't have something, right? So that's where that
Yeah.
network comes into play.
Yeah. My biggest thing is I've always said, I always say, probably a lot of people hate when I keep saying it, but I say, we're all in this together. And at the end of the day, the resources and partnerships you build, if we can't do it as a company, we just don't tell the customer, yeah, we can't do it. We'll help them.
Right.
We'll guide them along. Cause, to be honest with you, I've talked to many customers like, yeah, this ain't, you probably heard it before. This ain't the best fit for us, but we know somebody
Hmm.
who can, and who's a trusted partner resource. And once again, that's why we have the partnerships and relationships we do, because we get referrals from other
Yeah.
resources back to us saying, hey, you guys might want to talk to Adler. We do the same thing. Well, you might want to
Yeah.
talk to X, Y, and Z because we know those guys and this is a better fit for them based on our equipment, our abilities, and everything else.
Yeah.
So
It's true. What goes around comes around,
there you
right?
go.
It's
Absolutely.
that, yeah.
Absolutely.
I like the cliche because I think it's true in this community,
Yeah,
right?
it really
It
is.
works. All right. So
Yeah.
bonus insight. So I can't not talk about AI
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
more workforce. So when it comes to artificial intelligence, and I want
Yeah.
you to kind of speak from a personal perspective too. If you wanted to speak
Yeah.
about what Adler's doing, that's
No, that's
fine.
right.
But just like curious, where are you, where is Joe embracing it? And where are you like backing away from it?
I wouldn't say backing away. I mean, I've always said that I'm never afraid of, innovation and technology because obviously I've been around long enough. I mean, I started on a drafting board in high school and saw the whole progression of 2D, 3D, and everything
Yeah.
else and all the simulation tools. So I've always embraced it. But once again, depending on the company you work for or where you're at, some companies jump on it and some companies do the baby steps, or
Hmm.
sometimes baby steps is better instead of jumping into it. We can have that conversation all day long.
Yeah.
But as far, as Adler, our company is very progressive. I think we kind of stay ahead of the curve. We've implemented some AI stuff. I think we just had a conversation about using AR to help, I'm sorry, AI to help, not just me quoting, but our other companies to quote things more efficiently and better. So talking about like, taking all the, drawing files and stuff that we get from a customer and put them into a database. And then when somebody goes to build a quote, all that legacy data is in, and it can start building your quote for you. I mean, there's other ways to do it. Obviously, there's software
Hmm.
programs out there, but efficiency is always the best way because if you get out 10 quotes a week and you use AI and you can get out 20 quotes and they're accurate
Exactly.
and everything else, obviously that promotes more business for you. But I would say we're taking baby steps right now, to be honest with you, because Adler's really only 5+ year company, and we're growing and stuff, and a lot of things going on, of course, like everybody else. But I think we'll get there eventually. We'll probably see more AI coming through probably the next year or two for sure, doing more of the office stuff for sure.
Right.
Because
That
uh,
seems the more
it
obvious,
is the
right? The
more
more
obvious, I
obvious.
guess, because I'm not saying the guys on the floor reject AI, but CAM software is coming a long way now, and
Hmm.
I mean, I watched a lot of demos and videos where there's a lot of intuitive technology in CAM software that feature-based recognition, all that. But
Yep.
the next level is if you see, yeah, AI can predict. Yeah, you guys just programmed a similar part, almost like a cut and paste or here.
Yeah.
I can already get you 16 steps into the program without you having to start with your work piece and all that kind of stuff. So it's coming. It
It is
really is. And
coming.
I wouldn't say there's not a whole lot of pushback, but eventually, as they all say, you're either going to be in the group or you're going to be out of the group.
Yeah,
Same
like
things.
everyone keeps saying too, it's not going
Yeah.
away, right? So you
No,
have to,
absolutely not going
and
away.
really, we over the past at least I don't know 20 years,
Yeah.
it was Industry 4.0. Like think of all the things that have
Yeah,
happened with data.
absolutely.
This is just that on steroids. It's really
Well,
we're moving into this now. If you ask Christina on a personal level how she feels about it, it's a different opinion, right?
yeah,
Because
right.
I can project really far in
Yeah.
advance, wondering where this is all taking us.
Hmm.
But for the efficiency alone, what it can do for businesses is
Yeah.
is dramatic.
Well,
So.
if you just really
Yeah.
want to even take a step back, think about years ago when they talked about, the robotics and automation and how far along that's come. So
Yeah.
this is another one of those transitional
It is.
historical events for the industry, for many industries, not just ours. Obviously, it's global. So
Yeah.
it's one of those things where, once again, you're either in or you're in the way type
Yeah.
thing. So
Exactly. Well, that ties nicely to my last question, really,
sure.
which is workforce trends.
Yeah.
So, and AI directly is impacting that.
Yeah.
So, what direction, whether you want to talk about AI and workforce or not,
No, it's all right.
what direction do you see the next generation and the labor market? Where is that trending in your eyes?
Yeah, well, the training, because I teach online and I've done or other type of instructing, probably within the last 10 years. So I've seen some progression going on even as myself, traditional school compared to just going all online and that kind of thing. And nowadays you can have AI, do all your note taking and all that kind of stuff that's going on. So I would say next generation, the next workforce, they're getting so much data thrown at them. One of the things you got to be careful, how valid is it and how robust is it? I was assuming technical schools and all the resources that are out there, they're vetted out. But once again, you have to really, like, if you really want to dial into a certain area, you have to, really do your research and your homework because, not all information is great information for sure.
That's the truth.
But I would say, because the next generation is so, I mean, they've been raised on technology. So if you really want to put it that way, at a far higher level than I have, but I've seen it obviously grow as I've been in the industry and as I've grown as a professional person in the industry. So my biggest thing is companies have to be more, which I believe they are, because I see more and more things about, companies doing simulation training. I could go on all the simulation training that's going on there,
Yeah.
which I think is great because, if somebody doesn't have the ability to be on the floor or be on a production floor, if they're working in an office, they can kind of get that feel through a simulation. Right,
Yeah.
wrong, or different. Some people say, hey, they still need to get on the floor. I agree, but if you really want the workforce to get up to speed quicker, there's other things that can really get them in tune and at least get them preemptively thinking about what it's going to be
Yes.
like. You know what I'm
It's
saying?
just a
So
tool, right?
just a tool,
Anything
right?
virtual is just a tool. And like you
That's right.
said, that's how they
Absolutely.
learn. So why
Yeah,
not capitalize on that technology to get them
absolutely.
interested and kind of streamline that training and make them more comfortable? I don't see a negative to that.
Oh, yeah, just think about it. Somebody, a kid sitting in his room or at a table drawing pictures on a piece of paper with crayons and that. Now they
Yeah.
can do it on the computer and do all
Yeah.
kinds of crazy stuff,
Yeah.
that
It's
kind of
so
thing.
true.
It's crazy when you see what
It's
kind of
limitless. Now,
artistry can.
what about retaining? So what is one
Yeah,
thing Adler does? So it's one thing to get them and train them. So then
yeah,
once you have that investment,
right.
what are some things you would advise people on how to keep those skilled people?
Yeah, I was even piggybacking on the whole apprenticeship mentality. Even in, we have an apprenticeship program here, but at the end of the day, that still has to be flexible enough that
Hmm.
here's the key. You get somebody who's very proactive. They want to learn. They want to eat everything up. You start them in different areas and different departments and all that kind of stuff and run them through the ringer per se. But at the end of the day, they're going to want to focus on something they really enjoy, really dial into. But I really don't think it's good for any company to like try to paint somebody in a corner. I mean, obviously they have to do their due diligence in different departments, but if you somebody's really going to shine, I'll just say you throw somebody in the milling department, they're doing just typical milling, but then you throw them into a machine that's a couple $1 million and it's a 5 axis, it's got all the bells and whistles, and they're all into it. They're
Hmm.
thriving and stuff. And you kind of want to keep that person in that position because now you can use them to train other people coming up behind
Yes,
them type of thing. So, and obviously we all talk about how my generation, this generation is getting older and we're not going to be around forever. And I will say we have a great mixture of the younger people,
that's great.
middle people, and then people like me that are within, next 10 years or so are going to be
Yeah.
dearly departing, someday. But
You're in a sounds like you're in a sweet spot right now. That's great.
yeah, yeah, that's it, the old sweet spot. But yeah, like I said, I think the biggest thing is that keeping them engaged. Don't paint somebody in a corner. And if they really want to thrive and they really want to learn other things, embrace that. Offer like any company, offer the professional development training. Send them to a trade show. Let them see things outside the building, and don't make them think they're just in a bubble and that everything that we do here nobody else is doing type thing. So just give them that bigger picture like we talked about before. And
Yeah.
uh,
That
uh,
seems to be
uh,
the theme, the
yeah,
big picture.
we're pretty lucky. We got some younger gentlemen and ladies in our company that are really well. Sarah, Sarah
Oh
Morgan.
my
Yeah,
gosh.
like I could go on and on, obviously, and that
Yeah.
really inspires me and other people that like, there is hope and there always will be
Yeah,
hope. There always will be hope.
exactly.
So
And
yeah.
you're just doing your part to make sure
Yep.
that happens, right? Because
Oh yeah.
people like Sarah, that doesn't just happen on its own.
Correct.
She's been surrounded by people that
Yes.
have made her into that,
Yep.
right, person
Absolutely.
that
Yeah.
she is. And you guys just are lucky to have her.
Yes, we are.
Yeah. So what's one thing Joe's working on right now that's exciting at work?
Well, we're quoting a lot of great projects for a lot of big name customers and companies
Okay.
out there, and we see a lot of stuff coming through that's like, man, there's a lot of great things going out there. Most of it's, I'm not gonna lie, it's medical device, obviously,
Of
and there's a lot
course.
of companies have made that transition from other industries to the medical device industry,
Yep.
and we're right on board. But we also have our consumer products customers, and I'll just say there's a lot of great things going out there in the industry, and we just want a piece of it. I'll quote something from our CEO, uh, Philip. He said when I came on board, he's like, we don't have to be the biggest or the best, we just want to be the first place that customer comes to because they know what we can offer to them. We want to be the best, but at the end of the day, that doesn't always happen. But like I said, we want to show people what we can do, and I think we've already proven that. We just got, we've this sky's the limit. I know I hate to say it that way, but we got a lot of great things going on here, and a lot of great people in this company and this organization. So for
That's
me, it's
great.
exciting because I get to see it up front, and then if we get awarded the projects, then I get to see them get shipped out the back door too. So that's even better.
You get to see the end.
That's right.
That's got to be satisfying,
It
right? To
is. It's
see
always
beginning
been.
to end. Here it goes, the end product,
Always
your
been
hands on.
since, yeah, from the
Yeah,
day I started in this trade, and you're designing something or you're building something, when I was on the floor and you get to see, when you're helping make the parts and the stuff that come through design and you see the big picture, it's very rewarding to see that plastic part come out of that mold.
yeah, yeah, and that you were a part of. I
That's
love it.
right.
Big
Yeah,
picture. Well, thank you, Joe. Thank you for all your time
absolutely.
and for your insights and for
Well,
everybody watching out there. For everything mold making, visit moldmakingtechnology.com. Stay informed and stay inspired.